Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to introduce today's guest, Travis Scott. Travis is a plant nerd, a growth enabler, and a natural-born teacher. He's also the founder and principal consultant at Rainier Digital, and he's an author of the book, Think Differently, How Recruitment Marketing Gets You Noticed Over the Noise. Travis is also the host of the Winding Road and Marketing Unboxed podcasts. Travis has been through a number of career pivots over his life, and in fact, he's even entertaining a career pivot as we speak now. And so he's going to share all of that with us today. Please join me in welcoming Travis Scott. Welcome, Travis.
Hey, Tammy, thanks. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, I am too. So, as you know, on Work from the Inside Out, we like to start with the earlier years, getting to know the younger Travis and what your roots and where you came from a little bit, your formative years. How might those have informed where you are today or not? Can you tell us a little bit about your earlier years?
Yeah, I've always been a plant nerd from day one. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how much was influenced. My uncle, who I looked up to, was a forestry major at Purdue, and he is a plant nerd. And I kind of feel that it was kind of innate, and then he helped bring it out. And as a kid, loved animals. I lived in a small town in Indiana. There's a reason why John Mellencamp has a song called "Small Town," because Indiana is riddled with them. And so I grew up in one, actually not far from where Mellencamp grew up. He grew up in Seymour. I grew up in a small town called Fairland, which is really close to Shelbyville. And Shelbyville and Seymour were in the same athletic conferences in sports. So pretty close to where Mellencamp grew up, which is why he's one of my favorite artists. Now he's my son. My son's only 3, but he has acquired a taste for John Mellencamp songs. So we listen to a lot of it still.
That's great.
So you can take the guy out of Indiana, but you can't take the Indiana out of the guy, right? So, even though I'm in Spokane, Washington, haven't lived in Indiana since 1998. I still have those roots. But I think as a kid, I think the not only just being a plant nerd from then to now, and actually now I'm finally acting on it. My career isn't involved with plant nerdery yet.
Nerdery.
I plan to change that. I really want to start to focus on things like ag tech because it involves plants and agriculture and things like that I'm interested in. My wife's family is on a 10,000 acre farm in South Dakota. So it's something that is very interesting to me. So that's an area I want to explore, but I'm also acting on it finally. And I'm currently going through the Washington State University Master Gardener program. Oh. And probably about 3 weeks away from finishing that. And Washington State University is the OG of the Master Gardener program. It started there, and now every state has a program, but it all started in the 70s at Washington State. So that's been fun to go through and getting my fix there. And I think the one thing that has really the common thread is when I was a kid, I used to love to go to the Shelby County Library. loved it. Like most kids are not avoiding libraries.
Right.
And
You had to be quiet.
Exactly. Yeah. And I loved it, man. I could not, that was my favorite place to go. Even when I was like 5, maybe even 4, I just loved to go there. And I would get plant books and I would get science books and bring them home and dig through them, mostly look at the pictures. And just, I got really good at knowing what things were. And as I got older, I lived out in the middle of nowhere. So a lot of farmland, but a lot of forests. And I grew up on a small lake. And so I was constantly out there pulling things out of the lake, turtles, crawfish, fish, occasionally getting chased by snakes. That did happen once.
Oh boy.
That was a little scary, but yeah, I mean, and there was, beavers were on the lake and all kinds of stuff. So just grew up in nature, loved it, and wanted to know more about how it all worked, what was around me. And so,
it's interesting too that, as I introduced you as a growth enabler and as a natural teacher, it sounds like you're also a very natural learner. I mean, from that young age, 4 or 5 years old, remembering your love of going to the library and pouring through these books about plants and nature. I want to just pull one thing from you before you go further with this. So when you call yourself a plant nerd and you use the word nerdery, which I love, I'm going to have to look that up. Would I find it? I don't know. But what constitutes being a plant nerd?
Well, so when I would check out those books and as I got older, I would spend a lot of time out in the woods, out in the forest. And I didn't just walk or hike. I didn't even really hike. I went out there to learn, and I went out there to find out what is here. And so, by the time I left Indiana, it also helped that I took a wetland class at IU as part of my major. So I got really good at identifying plants. I still can identify things at 50 miles an hour down the road and be like, that's that.
Wow.
But I think being a plant nerd is just really that curiosity and that insatiable desire to learn everything you can about everything that's around you. And when I was in high school, family members would ask me to come help them identify problems with their plants in their yard and things like that. Or what is this? Or can you help me pick out some things that'll work here? And so I actually thought I would go into landscape architecture. And then I realized that I enjoyed designing my own stuff more than I enjoyed designing it for other people.
Interesting.
So never went that route. But yeah, and I think another level of plant nerdery was after I graduated from Indiana University in 1998, before I moved to Denver. I went to Glacier National Park, which now is really close to where I live, about 4.5 hours away. I went there with a couple uncles, cousins, and we just kind of had a guy's trip to Glacier, and it was a 4-day backpacking trip. We had a guide. They took us out in a van, dumped us in the most remote part of the park, and said, "We'll be back here to pick you up in 4 days."
Sounds like Outward Bound.
Yeah, it was. It was crazy. It was a little scary coming from Indiana and being dropped in the middle of grizzly country.
Wow.
And that was before cell phones, and we were on our own, man. We were out there in the middle of the wilderness. But we had a guide who grew up in Montana, and he knew all the nerd stuff that I wanted to know. And so in 4 days, by the time we met the van to pick us up, I knew every plant out there. And from the spruces and firs to the different types of, thimbleberries and huckleberries and, undergrowth, I knew everything. And then what was wild is that was in 98. I moved to Seattle in 2006. and then here to Spokane in 2016. And Spokane's a lot more like Montana than Seattle in the western part of the state.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of the same plants. And so when I went hiking in Seattle in the Cascades, I was like, oh, I know what this stuff is. I remember this. And so I quickly remembered a lot of this. And then when I got to Spokane, I'm like, I know all this stuff. And so it was fun to go hiking again and know what was around me. So I would say that's another level of plant nerdery.
So plant nerdery, part of it is just knowing what things are by name. Is there another level of understanding? Because to name things is great, but what else? And it sounds like also, you answered one of my questions without me even asking it, which was, you decided not to go into landscape architecture, although I am curious what you majored in at Indiana University, given your strong interest in plants. Was your undergrad major in something related to agriculture or plants or something?
It was environmental science.
Oh,
and
okay.
I really focused on water resources and lake and watershed management and wetlands. That was what I enjoyed and where my focus was. And if I maybe would have eventually left because I wouldn't make enough money, but if money wasn't an issue, if I would have found a job out of college that was dealing with wetlands and delineating wetlands for building, you can't build in a wetland and things like that. That's probably what I would be doing. And that's what I thought I would be doing, playing in the mud, right? Like that's what I wanted to do when I graduated. Didn't work that well. But to kind of come back to your question about like, is it more than just knowing the names of things? And
what is is it to know? It's funny. I just thought of the Latin tagline for where I went to school was non satis skier. I don't know. I don't know Latin, but it was to know is not enough.
Right.
That was
exactly.
So tell me what it's more than just knowing the names, right?
No. Yeah. More than knowing the names. It's knowing what the purpose of that plant is in its ecosystem. What does it contribute? What depends on it? What does it do? Is it poisonous? Is it not?
Can you eat it?
Then yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there are berries that you don't want to eat.
Right.
And then there are others like thimbleberries that are delicious and huckleberries.
Yeah.
But where I really get the satisfaction is when I'm hiking with people and I can explain these things to them and what they're seeing, what they are. And a few years ago, my brother and his kids came out to visit us here in Spokane, and we went on a hike. Turned out to be a little bit longer than they were up for. But there were a lot of ponderosa pines along this hike. And one of the most fun parts of that hike is when I explained to my young nieces that if you smell the bark of the ponderosa pine, it smells like butterscotch. And so they were all, if someone came walking by and they saw all these kids with their noses stuck up against the trunk of these huge ponderosa pines, they'd wonder what the hell's going on there. But yeah, that was kind of fun to kind of teach them those things and then teach them about, hey, as we start to climb, the plants are going to change because the conditions are changing. And so we'll start to see some cedars, some hemlocks and things like that. And the ponderosa pines are not going to be here as we go up the side of this mountain. So it was fun to teach them about that stuff and what they were looking at. And that comes back to that teaching piece of it. I don't like to just learn. For me, I like to learn and then share it with other people. That's where the real satisfaction comes from.
Yeah. And I think that also makes a distinction from a career standpoint when you are, for example, let's say you went into landscape architecture. You're designing for someone else, but then you're done, right? And so you're kind of doing for someone else. I think teaching involves a level of engagement with somebody and watching them light up. It's a very different type of interaction. that you get to be involved with, and sort of, not that if you didn't design something for someone and they loved it, that might feel good, but then it's one and done kind of thing, right? It's not the same kind of satisfaction. So you've done a great job here walking us through your nerdery, which I love that word, and giving us a really good taste of your younger years. It's so interesting too, to say, this is just something that's always been a part of me. I have no idea why, other than that you had an uncle who had been a forestry major, and it sounds like you had a real bond with him, and sounds like he whet your appetite for this, but still there's something within you that was drawn to it as well. So now we know that today you're doing some very different things, and I'm curious about how that came about. Can you sort of take us through your evolution? Because one of the things that you're doing today is revenue operations consulting, and there's nothing, not that there couldn't be a nerd aspect to that. There could be, but it would be a very different kind of nerdery, I would think. And it certainly doesn't have much to do with plants directly. So I'm curious about how things evolved for you as your career has shifted and changed, and maybe even a little more about, because there's so many different directions you could have gone in with your interest in plants, wetlands, the environment. I would imagine as you got older, you might have seen your way through to a career in some of those areas that might have been maybe not lucrative, but certainly where you could make a living. So I'm curious if you ever reconsidered some of those things, or what the trajectory looked like for you.
Yeah. And so I think there was a time when I really thought about making a hard pivot. 'Cause I started out, I graduated from IU. I moved to Denver. I got a job working for a government contractor, and mostly found myself dealing with hazardous waste. And eventually was promoted and went into a role in NEPA compliance, which is kind of the law that keeps the government from breaking the law with environmental things. And I was working at Rocky Flats, which is out between Golden and Boulder. And it used to be a Department of Defense site where they made plutonium triggers for nuclear weapons. And the U.S., during the Cold War, after World War II, spread out all of the manufacturing for our nuclear weapons, so that if the Russians bombed something, the whole thing wouldn't go offline. We could still, so Oak Ridge, you probably have heard of Oak Ridge. Down in New Mexico, there's, gosh, I forget the name of it, but it had a data breach several years ago. There's Hanford here in Washington. So each place, and then there's Rocky Flats, that was Rocky Flats. Each place kind of did their own part of manufacturing nuclear weapons. And the plutonium triggers were manufactured at Rocky Flats and built there. And as the Cold War ended, the arms race stopped pretty much, thankfully. And we realized we didn't need all these different facilities doing all these different things, right? So they were going to decommission Rocky Flats and basically clean it up as much as they could. And there's part of it that they basically just had to cover with concrete, cap it. It would never be remediated. It's just, that's how it's going to be. It's blocked off to people. But there was a huge buffer zone. So the footprint of Rocky Flats itself was small, but there's a huge buffer zone. And that just kept people from building houses way too close to things they shouldn't build houses. But now it's all a natural area. There's hiking. That's what I ended up doing. And I thought, man, this is not playing in the mud. This is not what I had in mind. I don't want to deal with hazardous waste. The fact that in my cubicle, I had this graph that showed the predominant wind direction, so I could comfort myself in knowing that most of the time I wasn't downwind of dust blowing that had uranium and plutonium in it. I just thought, man, this is not for me. This is work that needs to be done, but this isn't what I had in mind. So plus working with the government, wasn't down with that. Like it was just it was just too hard to get things done and inefficient. And I just didn't like, there were occasionally some political aspects of it that I didn't enjoy. So I wanted out of that. I wanted to also make more money. I had friends that had business degrees and they were graduating and making a heck of a lot more money than I was. And I was like, man, I need to make more money. So I thought, well, I need to go into business, but I had a science background, knew nothing of business. It was never really an interest of mine ever up to that point. But I've started to find it interesting now that I was out in the world. Then I took the path of least resistance, took a sales role, moved to Los Angeles.
Why Los Angeles?
A girl.
Okay.
Met a girl who lived in LA, kind of like John Mellencamp. It's all coming back. Met an LA doll, moved her to a small town. I ended up moving her back to Colorado. She had grown up there. So, but anyway, I moved to LA, took a sales role. It was really a fish out of water in a lot of ways. Moved from Colorado to LA.
Oh yeah.
Went from environmental work to sales. So it was a big change, but realized quickly sales wasn't for me, but I wanted to figure out what was. So I went and got an MBA so I could touch everything and see what was it that really stood out. And operations and marketing were the two things that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed business law, but didn't want to go back for more school and more expense. And so I thought, well, that's interesting, but probably out at this point.
Yeah.
And enjoyed operations and enjoyed the spreadsheets and the modeling and everything involved with that of inputs and outputs and finding bottlenecks and making things, how can we figure out how to make these things work better, right? That was kind of the science part of me that I enjoyed. And then I really liked marketing. And so I ended up going the marketing route, ended up getting sidetracked. I took an internship during my MBA with a staffing firm to help them with the marketing plan. Ended up getting pulled into recruitment. And next thing I know, I'm in recruitment. And fought like hell to get out as long as I could. 10 years later, I finally made it out. But during that time, 2008 hit. So I had been in recruitment for probably 4 or 5 years at that point. 2008 hit and the economy tanked. And I moved, and I was living in Seattle at that time. I moved back to Denver, didn't have a job. There were no jobs. I was really discouraged and thought, man, I'm so done with this stuff. If I could do anything right now, I would go be a history teacher and a football coach. And I thought, okay, I'll just do that, right? And or then I considered going back and doing something in forestry. Like I need to get back to what I enjoy and go back to my roots. And then I went to, I started looking into getting a teaching certificate and going back to school for that. I'm like, man, when they said the salaries that teachers make, I knew it was low, but I did not know it was that low. And then they told me the price of the program. I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever pay this back. And I'd enjoy what I'm doing, but man, like I need to eat and I have a family. I don't know if this would work. So that was pretty much what undid that.
I'm curious what your interest in history was. Was that also an interest of yours to teach history?
Yeah, I've just always been interested in history as well. As I got older, part of the books that I would get became history.
Oh, okay.
I was fascinated with World War II. My grandpa was in World War II. My grandpa was in the Pacific. My uncle jumped on D-Day. And so I was just fascinated to learn what they went through, what it was like. And as I learned more, I became even more interested. And so it was always a history. Always interested with that. And I thought if I'm going to teach something, that would be the most fun thing to teach. And then finally worked my way into marketing, had to do my own thing, was focusing more on advertising at the time, which was fun. I mean, the fun thing about it was you could get pretty quick results, right? Which clients like. Just always felt like there was something missing. And then I ended up going in-house with a longtime client of mine to be their director of marketing. Had never led a team, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to lead a team. Because if I ever went back on my own again and had a business and built something bigger than me, it'd be nice to have that leadership experience. Because I don't want that to be my first go around with leadership, right? Of building a team for my own business. A lot more is on the line.
Right.
Trying to figure out how to be a manager, leader, how that all works, right? So did that. Was there for 5.5 years, and then just last August left to start Rainer Digital up again. It's the second time I've done it, but more with an emphasis on kind of the operations piece. So it comes back to what I enjoyed during my MBA of operations, of making things work better, more efficient, and it's kind of more scientific. I enjoy the creative side of marketing, but where I found as I started to get into revenue operations, I've had sales roles, I've had recruiting roles, and I've had marketing roles. And I love technology. I love how it can make things work. I mean, we had a call where I went over some technology for podcasts with you.
Right.
I love how you can leverage it and just make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
And revenue operations is basically people, process, data, and systems, and the systems being the tech. And so I understand those things really well. And where it comes into play with my early background is one of the things I do love about plants is creating the design, putting all the elements together, making sure it fits in the shade, in the sun. What does it do? How big does it get? How will the leaves contrast? I love the design, the art element of it, but then I like to watch it grow into the vision I had and see it get there. It takes time.
Yeah.
But my wife has a tough time because when I go to a nursery or I have this thing in my head about what this corner of my yard is going to look like, not just like immediately, but 5 years and 10 years from now.
Right.
And I plant this stuff and she's like, what is this? What's going on here? I'm like, well, it's going to do this. And she can't see it. She has such a hard time seeing what these things will become.
Right.
And that's the best part for me, is like watching them turn into that. And with operations, I love to come in, figure out all these pieces. What kind of tech do we need? What kind of tech is their tech stack bloated?
Yeah.
Like I like to analyze it. That's kind of the scientific piece of it. And then pulling it together and then watching it do its thing and grow and help the company grow, just like the plants would grow. And I think, and as I was going through my marketing career, I kept getting pulled into the tech side and building tech stack and making it all work, and processes and documentation and all of that stuff. I didn't realize it was happening until I stepped back and realized, okay, where am I? I'd even start projects, like side projects, to do one thing. And by the time the project was done, I had like moved into more operations than the stuff I was originally hired to help with, because it just naturally, I got in, I saw things, I'm like, oh man, did you know, like if we did this, or if you added this piece of technology, it could do this, it could save you a ton of time. We could cancel this. And if you change this process, you could do it faster. And I started seeing these things. The next thing I know, that's where they needed the most help. It wasn't in lead gen. It was like, let's get this back end stuff operating, so you have more time to do lead gen. You have more time to work with clients, right? So I just realized, and that's where I had fun doing.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to really learn the ins and outs of operations, even though I've kind of been doing it.
Yeah.
There's a lot I need to learn. And so I decided, revenue operations is really kind of where I probably should be. It can nerd out.
So when you say revenue operations, can you unpack that just a little bit more? Because as you're describing people, processes, data, and systems, I'm thinking, I understand what you're talking about in terms of, analyzing something and pulling it together and watching it grow. the word revenue, I'm getting a little stuck there. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like when you're working with a client?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so revenue, I mean, that's basically the most important thing that a company is trying to do, increase their revenue,
Right.
So they can grow. And so when you think of revenue, you think of sales mostly, but there's more involved. There's marketing, there's customer success and your support and service teams. There's an implementation team if you have a service or product that you have to then implement for a customer. There's that. And so it really comes down to every part of that customer journey that they interact with your company is involved in revenue operations. And most of the time, things are so siloed that sales has its objectives.
Right.
Marketing has its objectives.
Right.
Customer service has its objective. They're not really pushing toward the same things.
Yeah.
Marketing could be focused on marketing qualified leads, and those leads are awful. And sales is crying about it, right? And then marketing saying, well, why isn't sales following up with these leads? And so the whole point of revenue operations is blow up the silos, get everybody on the same page, working from the same data toward the same goals and objectives, and just get them on the same page using the same system. So like HubSpot has a sales hub, marketing hub, service hub. It's all there within that system. And all the teams can come in, be using the same thing, pull it all together. It can talk to each other. You can automate things internally, externally. So that's really where the revenue comes from, because it's really pushing the entire organization toward growing revenue, but really from the back end processes, data, the people, and the technology. So that's where it's kind of confusing, and a lot of times revenue. If you look at revenue operations roles, open roles on Indeed or LinkedIn, they're very heavily skewed to sales, and that's just some organizations just don't truly understand what revenue operations is. They think it's a fancy name for a sales director, right? But it's much more than that.
Yeah. No, I get a better picture. It really depends on or ties in with just a lot of cross-functional communication and really building your cross-functional team.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's transformative for a company. It can really impact the entire culture of a company, what you're talking about. Wow. That's amazing. I can see why you're excited about that.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's great.
And I'm in the weeds doing that nerd stuff of data and tech and building processes and making processes work better and watching it grow, planting the seeds and watching it grow.
And yet there's a key, maybe this is my bias, but that's okay. There's a real key people side to all of this though, because the people have to buy in to all of this, right? To make it work. And it's going to change relationships in the workplace as a result, right?
Yeah, because now sales has to talk to marketing, and marketing has to talk to sales, and marketing is going to learn a lot from sales because sales is talking to the customer.
Right.
And it's amazing how many marketers don't truly understand their customers. And that's their number one priority and role, right? It's just those silos just prevent that communication.
So is there a customer for you, clients for you, certain sweet spot for you, certain types of customers that you generally work with?
I'd say right now, based on my experience, staffing agencies are a good fit, kind of more traditional B2B, kind of non-SaaS. Because I feel like even though a lot of this revenue operation stuff is going on in startups and SaaS companies, it still applies. Every company needs revenue, right?
Right.
Even nonprofits. And so
yes,
nonprofits
they do,
is one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so non-SaaS B2B. And like I mentioned, where I'd eventually like to go is further away from where I actually have my experience in the industries and more towards interests. And that's ag tech, more environmentally conscious companies, environmental companies, sustainability companies with a sustainability focus. So getting back to my roots of plants and the environment would be ideal. So now I could take that knowledge that I have, the interests and passion that I have, and then couple it with the skills that I've obtained in that
see it.
So
I see it happening probably sooner than later.
Yeah, I hope so. Because it's not that I don't like working with the other companies. I do.
Yeah.
I know it. But that, I've kind of worked with an ag tech company, and it was a lot of fun. Like, I understood like what they're trying to do, what they need to see in the systems. And it just made a lot more sense to me. So
that's great. So if people want to learn more about your work or get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm Travis L. Scott.
Okay.
Because
there are a lot of Travis Scotts out there.
There are, and even a rapper that changed his name to mine, which has really screwed everything up. but yeah, you find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm the most active. I'm on Twitter, 509 Marketer, and actually becoming more active there. There's my website, Rainier Digital, and then my newer podcast is Marketing Unboxed, and really starting to build some momentum with that. And we have a lot of great guests who we've had on, who are upcoming. I have a co-host, Ali Schwanke, who's also a HubSpot Solutions partner, who joins me on some of the shows. And we have four series that we've broken out into: Author Series, Revenue Operations Series, HubSpot Series, and the last one is. What is the last one? I can't remember. I just created these 4 series. Leadership.
We'll put it all. Oh, leadership.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll put that all in the show notes so people will have access to all that. So one last question. So in thinking about making transitions, and you've clearly made many of them from the inside out, no doubt about it. What would be a key piece of advice that you would give somebody else who is considering their next move?
I would say the biggest thing, and I got this from a book. It's one of my favorite books. It's The Art of Possibility by Benjamin Zander. And there's one thing that I feel like it's my mantra now, but I feel like it's gotten me through some tough times since I left my role in August, of imposter syndrome setting in. I know this stuff, but there's so much to learn. And I think that's where imposter syndrome comes from, is you know enough about what you don't know. It's easier when you don't know anything. You're just brand new. You don't have any imposter syndrome because you don't know just how much you don't know. But once you start to know, then you're like, oh my gosh, there's just so much more to learn. And there's so many more people out there that know more than me. And that was really, really heavy. Probably it hit me more than it ever has in my life over the last 6 months. And the biggest thing I kept coming back to was, it's all invented. Everything is invented. And all these people I see out there who are doing what I'm doing, who seem to be successful. They're not going to talk about their down days, right?
Nope.
They started where I'm at now, and they figured it out. And if they can figure it out, I can figure it out. And everything they're doing, everything I'm doing is invented. We weren't put on the earth to know how to build marketing systems and operations, right? Or to market or to use this technology. So it's all invented. I would say that when I woke up in the morning, just felt like the weight of the world. I would just say, man, it's all invented. These people started where I am, and let's enjoy the process. There is no end game.
Right.
So it's the process. Enjoy it.
I love it. Great advice. Great advice. Travis, thank you so much for being here today. This is really interesting, and it's going to be very exciting to see what impact you're going to have down the road on the agriculture world and the environment. I see it happening. I do. Yeah. Definitely.
Looking forward to that day.
Yeah, I am too. Thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Travis Scott. It was so interesting to speak with him about his professional transitions. What's your key takeaway from our interview? If you're interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's show, you can find them on the blog page of my website at tammygoolerloeb.com. Just look for episode 173. Are you thinking about what your next professional move is going to be? Maybe you're just feeling a little stuck. I would encourage you to pick up my new book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available in print and ebook editions through my website, Amazon Global, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or you can request it through your local public library. If you were inspired by this episode with Travis, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And please do subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd so appreciate reading your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find through my website at tammygoulerloeb.com. Just click on the Apple Podcast button and follow the instructions provided there. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. I would really love to hear how it's going for you. Feel free to drop me a line. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.